Welcome to the Fearless Happiness Podcast, where we showcase phenomenal individuals who have overcome serious traumas, life obstacles, and challenges to find their own path to fearless happiness. Listen as Max Njist invites guests from all around the world to share their experiences and spread strength, hope, and faith. This is the Fearless Happiness Podcast, and this is Max Njist.
All right, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Max from the Fearless Happiness Podcast, coming back to you today with another special and amazing guest who just shared a little story about playing tennis in almost like full ski gear because it was so cold. But that's the crazy weather in this United States lately, especially on the East Coast and stuff like that. So, I won't say how our weather is right now because it's kind of like really nice. But anyway, I have Kristine Genovese with me today. But what I like to do, Kristine, is have you introduce yourself, like who you are, what it is you do, and then you and I are going to rock and roll.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and to meet your audience. Yes, my name is Kristine Genovese. It can be as Italian as you like because my great-great-uncle Vito was that one, the Vito Genovese from New York City, one of the head of the 5 crime families. So I always say that I'm bringing light to the name this time around. But I do come by the nickname the spiritual gangster pretty honestly. So I am known for creating a healing method called soul intelligence. And it is a bioenergetic method that helps shift all of those things that are holding you back from living your best life up and out of the body. And I do it in a very painless way. And I'm sure we'll go into exactly how I do it and what it is.
Yeah.
But that's a pretty good way to put it. I'm also the chief growth officer for a nutraceutical company called Nutritional Frontiers. And we are on the mission to make the world healthy, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, energetically, in all ways. So that's a little bit about me.
I love it, Kristine. I love it. And I loved how you introduced yourself, right? I know I'm sorry for pronouncing it wrong, but it like if you see, well, it doesn't show on here. That's
you can go Genovese because that's the way we say it in New York. In Italian, it's Genovese. It's all good. As Italian as you want to make it.
That's what I'm saying, because when I watch those old crime shows, right, when they're talking about there's some that say it different, like the way you did, some say it the other way. But it's so cool that you're on like let's say the opposite spectrum. You bring life into the world and help heal people instead of putting those concrete shoes on, as they talk about, I've heard in programs.
Yeah, it's actually interesting. He died when I was a year old, actually. He died when I was, obviously a baby. But my mom will tell me, she told me a story of how her and her sister went to their grandmother, my great grandmother's funeral, Vita Genovese. Yeah. So she and her brother Vito came over on the boat together, and when she passed, Vito showed up with the fedora, the trench coat, and the henchmen coming to the funeral. So they remember that, vividly as teenagers.
Wow. I bet you have some interesting stories. I mean, we're not going to make the podcast about that, but I mean, I gotta say, the last name comes in handy. I had a book tour in New York City in the fall, and I had made a restaurant reservation at an Italian restaurant, and it was so cool because I said, look, I'm a little early. I don't know if you have room. They're like, what's your name? And I said, Kristine Genovese. And they went, Genovese? I said, yeah. We'll seat you right now. So membership has its privileges, let me tell you, especially in New York. See, I'm a foodie. If it came in handy for me, I'd be like, yeah, thank you very much. I'm hungry. Let's go.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
But so okay, obviously that's not a big part of your story growing up with
it's not.
Families and stuff, though. But I do like to talk about the challenges that you grew up with and that helped shape who you are today as a person, that got you into the work that you do. So you go back as far as you want or not, but talk about those challenges that have made you who you are today.
Well, I mean, there's so many we could go to. Healer, heal thyself. Here we are. Most healers have to go through their own healing journey before they can really, truly help somebody else, right? Correct. So if I think about, if I go back to childhood, I grew up with an alcoholic father. And so Whatever I did, I always had to overdo. Like I couldn't just hit the mark. I had to exceed the expectation
Right.
in order to, get positive reinforcement or attention. And so I grew up, becoming an overachiever, right? Whether it was sports or academics or anything like that. And my career took me to be a corporate turnaround specialist. So I would fix broken companies. Can't fix broken people. That took me a little longer to figure out, right? You can help
Right.
them, but they have to be willing to help themselves. But anyway, so I would
Absolutely.
always figure out like what people or process or technology needed to shift for the business to succeed, right?
Right.
And so growing up an overachiever, that served me really well in business because I wouldn't just meet the expectation, I would exceed it, right? So I was sought after. It was really great. I made a lot of money. I'm known for it. Where it failed me, with that self-limiting belief that I wasn't good enough, which is really where that comes from,
Right.
was in the relationship side. So I would choose partners who would not underdo, because I would feel like I needed to overdo. And so it was really a form of self-abandonment. If they're okay, I'm okay. And most of the time they weren't okay. So then I wasn't okay. So it took me a long time to really see that pattern, and how that showed up in my personal life, where it actually served me in my work life. So that's just one example of what I would call a self-limiting belief that showed up really as a childhood wound that was still affecting my adult relationships. And there's probably like at least, 7 popular ones that I can think of that really kind of fall in that category.
And it's like you said, a healer has to go through their own, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I've been working in the addiction field for years now, and I know that I can connect with a client, right, or a patient, whatever you want to call them, when they realize, holy moly, Max has been where I've been, right? But
Mm-hmm.
and then for us, we can understand it because like it brings back, I know that's me back at
Yep.
this time in my life, or this is me back at that time in my life, right? Um, and sometimes, there's a saying, sometimes quickly and sometimes slowly, right? Some of us learn quicker than others, and I'm on the slowly side. It takes me a while, and to get slapped upside the head to go, oh, that didn't work, right? Why don't you try going and
Right.
doing this, right? But you're right. Like growing up, like you said with your father, who was an alcoholic, what I'm hearing is he was very critical. So,
Oh, yeah, right.
when he was especially maybe when he was drinking and stuff, right? So, you're like, I'm going to be the opposite, but it still, right, affects us in a way where we pick partners like that. You know what I mean? Like, and
Mm-hmm.
we hang around people because that's what we're comfortable with, right? They started that narrative of you're not good enough, right? Even
Mm-hmm.
though it's not ours to own, but we take it on for some reason. So let me ask you, after you kind of
Sure.
figured this out, right? Like, how was that moment for you when you said, you know what? This is going to stop. Like, I'm going to be the best that I can be, and I'm going to change who I am as a person because I don't believe that narrative that I grew up with anymore. Does that make
Uh,
sense?
yeah, well, sure, right? I mean, I also think we learn in layers too, right? You get sort of a surface of it and you think you've conquered it, and then all of a sudden it shows up again, and you're like, how did I do that again? Right? You know,
Right?
so it's not always just like the one time. I wish it was just the one time and then we got it. But I
Right.
think it shows up. I mean, I would say the other thing too for me that really showed up with having the alcoholic father too was I remembered saying to my mom, I don't, um, I don't like how I feel when I'm around my dad.
Right.
And so I didn't realize at the time what that meant, right? I didn't know I was empathic, which meant I could feel others' emotions, right? And
Yeah.
so it took me to be more of an adult to realize, oh, that's why I felt that way. I literally felt like I changed when I was in his presence. Like I would feel the self-loathing. I would feel all of the, discomfort and just what he was experiencing, and, the jealousy that he had for other people and all of that kind of stuff. And so
Right.
I realized as a grown up, oh my gosh, that's what I was doing. You know, um, in terms of like, when did I realize the self-abandonment pattern? I mean, I think we see it, I see it in my past relationships now, and certainly cause of divorce, for me, just because I realized I can't continue to be in that unhealthy relationship because it's completely wrecking my life, right? And I need
Right.
to learn how to take care of me. And I think that was one of the things I talk about all the time is like self-care is not selfish, it's sacred. And so I really needed to love me, right? And
Yeah.
not abandon myself and learn that first before inviting anybody else to the party.
I love that. Right. And brings up a point for me. I love that you said that, right? Because it's not selfish to take care of yourself first, right? I don't know if you know, one of my favorite podcasters and businessmen, entrepreneurs, right, is Andy Frisella.
Hmm.
And because not only does he own a huge supplement company as well, but he owns multiple businesses. But I've listened to him when I first started getting on a podcast in his journey in life, right? Where
Mm-hmm.
he talks about like the first 10 years in business, I only made $50,000, right? And
Mm.
for most people, like, and you and I know, like, I don't know, probably me, I would have been like, well, that ain't working. Like, I need to figure out something different to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm getting to a point what you just said, and he says this very clearly. He says the best revenge on anybody or any situation or anybody that's trying to hold you back is personal excellence, right? Like learning to do the hard things and get comfortable doing the uncomfortable and getting better each and every day. Are you going to get perfect at it?
No.
He says the more you do things right, you will.
Yeah.
But it's like David Goggins says, learn to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And
Mm.
it took me a long time to figure that out. Like in my recovery. So like, for instance, let's say I relate to yours, like I was doing the same thing over and over again, and I would end up in the jail cell going, God, like, I got some serious bad luck here. Why does this keep happening? Right. But
You're
I
like,
wasn't, yeah,
maybe.
right. I wasn't putting together that I'm the main character in my story and I got to change some things.
Right.
But, as I've grown in my recovery, almost over 22 years now, and even as a person in personal development, I've learned that the best thing I can do is be selfish in a sense that I'm taking care of myself the best I can, right? Like eating the right foods, reading putting good things in my mind and working on my spirituality and all that stuff, and having like great guests like you that actually get to learn from, right? So that I can be the best I can be. So I can be the best husband. I can be the best father and the best grandfather. So I don't repeat, because I was on auto repeat for such a long time, just like Spotify or that loop, it just kept going, right? But I believe I agree with you 100%. You learn on layers, right? But I think it's because sometimes some of us, and I'll speak for myself, nobody else, but like I had a hard time learning the lesson because I was so stubborn, right? Like I'm gonna do it my way, right?
Mm.
When there was so many people behind me or in front of me going, hey Max, there's a different way. We're just suggesting try this way, right? But I'm so stubborn, right? I'm like that little kid that, nope, I'm doing it my way. Like, don't touch that hot stove, but I gotta go touch it anyway, right? Ow. But in this journey we call life, I think self-care, I know I hear it a lot now because of the circles I run with, and especially my recovery. If I don't take care of myself, my recovery is not going to mean anything because I'm going to drive myself into the ground anyway. And my first go-to, if I'm not doing the things I need to do, is to go back. You know what I mean? But
Mm-hmm.
what was comfortable. So in your learning and learning these lessons and stuff, what were some of the things I like to ask my guests is like, what were those lessons how that you learned, let's say, and the things that made them stick for you, like where you said, right? Because you said, I mean, I've done it. I've repeated it over and over. Like if I can look back over my life and go, oh, if I would have went left here instead of right, I would have been okay. But maybe there was something I needed to learn, right?
I think it has a lot to do for me with like boundaries, holding, not just setting a boundary, but holding a boundary. I always hear in my head, I was a big Seinfeld fan at one time, and it was about So you can take the reservation, you just can't hold the reservation. Like, it's kind of the same thing, right? You can set a boundary, but are you going to hold it, right?
Right.
And what does that even mean? And are you letting the other person know what's okay or what's not okay through
Right.
your behavior, right? Because I think when we keep moving those boundaries, in terms of allowing someone to run all over you, right? Or putting somebody else's needs before your own. Some of those wounds I was talking about before, just in terms of like, you know, um, like we talked about, talked about my dad being critical, right? Um, Criticism, right? Or shame, like mistakes felt dangerous. Encouragement was really rare, right? Support was limited. And so as an adult, you might chase that perfection or live with that inner critic, right? And so that voice isn't motivation, it's just that memory, you
Right.
know? When we talk about, struggling with boundaries, this emotional enmeshment, like I talked about, like feeling the other person's emotions, right? You carried those adult emotions as a kid. So then you became the fixer, right? And your needs came last. So as an adult, you attract these emotionally unavailable people who struggle with boundaries because love meant losing yourself. Their needs were way more important than yours because you learned if they're okay, then you're okay. And most of the time they're not okay, So you're in
Right.
this fight or flight, or just like this whole like lack of safety, like protection was missing. So you were on hyper vigilant alert all the time and that became normal. And as an adult, you struggle to relax or trust or soften because your nervous system never learned what safety was, right? You grew
Right.
up in chaos or instability. Your home was emotionally unpredictable. Calm felt unfamiliar, so you're always like on high alert, and that became norm. So as an adult, you sometimes confuse intensity with connection and peace with boredom. Like your body learned chaos was normal.
Right.
Or conditional love, right? Love
Right.
was based on behavior. If you do well, I shall give you my approval. Like you have to earn my love. And so you
Right.
kind of became afraid to fail, right? And as adults, that causes us to people please, overwork, right? Or fear disappointing other people. And love feels like something that has to be deserved or earned. Or you look at like emotional neglect, right? You went feeling unseen, right? You learned to
Yeah.
take care of yourself or self-soothe and your needs felt inconvenient. So as an adult, you might struggle to ask for help or feel lonely even when you're in connection with another person because your system learned like it wasn't safe to express your needs. And I think the biggest one for me is the abandonment wound. I think most people feel that one. You learn that people leave, and, safety was inconsistent. Maybe love felt uncertain. Loss felt familiar. And as an adult, sometimes that causes us to overgive, right? I have to do more, or detach or be the first one to leave in a relationship. Because
Right.
your nervous system learned closeness isn't safe. And I think that's why a lot of men are afraid to commit. I got to get out. I don't want to get that, right? But
Right.
all of those things show up from childhood in your adult life. Um, and so I think it's recognizing those patterns when they show up for you so that you have the ability to shift them. And the
Right.
soul intelligence method is a way for me to help people shift them, even if they haven't recognized the pattern, which is kind of cool because if we start getting into the energy conversation, everybody and everything is energy.
Yeah.
And since we're talking about childhood, we learned in elementary school that we are all protons, neutrons, electrons vibrating in an electromagnetic field, right?
Right.
We are all energy, okay? But we forget it because we're physical, we're corporal. And so we forget that we're connected to everybody and everything. So if we're all energy, that means energy can get stuck in your mental body, your emotional body, or your physical body. It can also get stuck in people, places, or things. So all of that trauma, okay, what energy is moving through our body, emotions are energy in motion. When that energy pools in the physical body, that's what causes dis-ease or dysfunction or a dissonance in your frequency, and something shows up in the physical to get your attention to fix it.
Right.
And so all of that childhood stuff we were talking about, it shows up in these patterns of self-limiting beliefs, old traumas, it's stored in the body because we're energy. We're mostly water and electricity, right? People forget that too. And they're like,
Right.
wait a minute, how do you do this work over Zoom? I'm like, how am I even seeing you over Zoom right now? Right? It's like,
Right.
it's all energy and frequency. And it's coming to a receiver, which is either your laptop. Like, we don't think twice about, oh yeah, it just streams from Netflix and shows up on my phone. Well, how does
Right.
that happen? It's
Right.
energy and frequency and receiver. Our bodies are the same way. The same way.
Well, you know, the way you explained it makes sense to me now because, right, like, especially like one of those struggle with the abandonment still, even as an adult, even though all the
Sure.
work I've done, if I feel someone is going to abandon me, like I'm out first, like, cause I want to be the one that says, you know what
Right.
I mean?
I feel
Eh,
ya.
You know what I mean? And it's because, and I've shared it on some of my podcasts before, but like one of the big reasons I found out that I drank and used drugs was, when I was a 10-year-old boy turning 11 and seeing my dad for the first time after a long time, right? And him promising, I'll be back for your birthday, I promise, right? And so he goes back to the Philippines because he had whatever to do there and he was supposed to come back, right? But so this is in January, and then February comes, March comes and goes, no dad. And then in April, I find out my dad passes of a massive heart attack.
Oh,
But as an 11-year-old, I was like, when everybody was crying, I kind of stormed out of the house. Like I was like, you talk about being mad. Like this is my 11-year-old head. How dare he break his promise? You know what I mean? Like I can laugh about it now, but I realized I carried that anger and that resentment for so many
yeah.
years. And then now I know why, like when my lower back hurts, it started back then. That's where my stress gets stored. Like and it's bringing up all these memories, right? So
Well, so the lower back, right? The lower
right.
back, that's when, that's your safety, like your root chakra. Okay. So if we talk about the 7 major energy centers in the body, the root is at the base of your spine. Okay.
Right.
And that is our connection to earth. That is all about safety, comfort, feeling okay on the earth plane here. And when your lower back goes out, it means your whole world's coming out from underneath you. Like it's just too much stress. You can't take it. So that's
Right.
very, very telling by you sharing that.
Right. And we'll talk after because I got some questions.
Okay.
Right. I mean, but you know what I mean? And I want people to understand you don't have to go through some horrible childhood, right? Like for the most part, I grew up with a great family, a great mom. Yeah, she was strict because she was a single mother, and she could play dad and mom very well, right? She could play the disciplinarian, and I'll tell you after that funny story about that. But and I used to, in my process, I would go, oh, it was her fault, before I got sober. It was my dad's fault. Everything was everybody else's fault until I learned to look in the mirror and go, I'm the only one that's going to change this, right? So I have to figure out. And then I've learned in my journey as a counselor too, that people kept to, you're an empath, Bex, because I can see when you're working with a client, you change when they're going through a hard time. I see your face change. Like you're trying not to, but I could see your body, like you're feeling their pain. And I always wondered why that happened. I never knew that until I got into recovery and talking to people like you about being, oh, that's why I can feel when someone's so stressed out. Like I can feel what they're going through. Right. And I might be having a good time, but it's like the brakes come on. You got to feel what they got to, because you're like, God gave us that gift, I guess, if you want to say.
I mean, and for people to be relating to what we're talking about. So, you can, if you think about it, like you go into that stuffy cocktail party, right? And you're just like, oh, I don't want to go in here. Or you go to that like rock concert and everybody's like vibing and so excited to see the same band. You can feel energy if you really like tune into it. And so it's easier, I think, for people to feel energy in a crowd because it's concentrated. So like if you've not felt it or you think you haven't felt it, that's a good way to go. But it's also, if you think about your stomach, and you're about to do something that makes you really, really nervous, you might get butterflies in your stomach, right?
Right.
Or some really bad news happens, you feel like you get punched in the gut, right?
Right.
That is the core of who we are. And that is our solar plexus chakra. That's the third chakra. Okay. And that is all about self-esteem, how we show up in the world. That's about our relationships, not only the relationship with ourselves, but the relationship with others, which is fascinating when you start studying functional medicine and how much the gut, even Hippocrates said 2000 years ago, all health begins and ends in the gut. That's because that's where our stomach processes emotions or or doesn't, right? Or they pool, just like it processes food, stores food, and processes it. That's it. That's its job. So
Right.
it's really interesting, like how much gut health like supports us. And, when your gut health is off, how many autoimmune conditions start, how many things go awry in the body. And that's the first place under attack. That's the first place you feel it. So I'm sure everybody can kind of relate to that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I get told I got a gut of steel, right? So, but then there's my wife, and when she I can tell the difference. Like, I believe what you're saying is what I'm getting at, because I can see in her when her gut acts up, that's something not going right with her. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
It's
Like, and
stress.
it's not,
It's stress, right?
exactly, and it's not
Yep.
just the food she
hmm
ate, because it could have been bland, but she's like, oh, my gut's on fire. You know what I mean? And I can feel it coming up. I'm like, you're stressed. What are you stressing
hmm
about? Right. I know. But that's why people look at me like, do you ever stress? I go, yeah, I just hold it in. And if you hear me talk about like we talked about my
No
back.
good. No
Yeah,
good.
exactly. But I'm learning. Right. And here, like
Yeah.
everybody, I'm almost 58 years old. Right. So you can teach an old dog new tricks, because I'm learning from guests like Kristine how to be more aware. And I love that you're talking about the chakras, right? Because not only is this podcast about people like yourself who have come back from challenges and are resilient and now helping others, right? I want people to understand, like, you don't have to go to a doctor and say, I'm very anxious, can you give me a pill? Because they're going to be more than happy to go, here you go, right?
Yeah.
I'm a I'm a big proponent of people like yourself who help people through that, modality, wherever you want to, however you want to call it,
hmm
right? Is because I believe, like, because I've had guests like yourself who have told me, like, it's kind of way cool. I don't, not scary, but really cool, because I've had guests like yourself, and they said, you know what, we're basically just spiritual beings having the human experience.
hmm
And then they talk about that electricity, that, the energy we have that makes us work, right? Because what shocks our heart back into rhythm? Electricity, right? Because it
Yep.
needs electricity if it's not beating, right? Right. That's why they have those defibs. Um,
Well,
so
let's
I want
talk
to
about the
ask,
heart for a second since you brought it up. Okay.
go
So,
for it. I
all
want to
right. So
hear.
the Heart Math Institute measured the electromagnetic field around the heart. Okay. It's not just this random pump in our body. It has a 6-foot wide electromagnetic field around it. Our brains, okay, where we spend most of the time calculating, thinking, processing, all that good stuff up there, strategizing, right? That has a 2-foot wide energy field around it.
That's the problem. Darn it. No.
The heart is infinitely more powerful. That is exactly right. But that's why, Neville Goddard got it right. Feelings are the secret. And I grew up in corporate America where we were told there's no crying in baseball. You can't show emotion, right? It
Right.
was all about stuffing that stuff down. And so since you brought that up, I'll just share a story. I I told you I was a corporate turnaround specialist for most of my career. So I grew up at a time where many women hit their head on the glass ceiling, and I probably still have scars, where, I grew up
Right.
thinking I had to do everything better than a man. Not just as good as, better than, right? Here goes that
Right.
overachiever again. I'm going to carry 2 cases of beer up 3 flights of stairs in college just to prove to the guys at the bar that I could do it as I was tending bar, putting myself through school. But when I got to corporate America, it was like, no, emotions have no business here. So you had to, act like a guy, be crass like a guy, know all the sports statistics. I used to make fun of people that would cry at work. I'm like, wow, how disconnected from being a woman I was. And I didn't realize it at the time until I had a cervical cancer scare.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, yeah. So I went to the
Excuse me.
OBGYN and she said, you have an abnormal pap smear. So we're going to have to do an in-office procedure. They did the in-office procedure, which basically they cut you there out. And she's like, too many cells are showing cancerous cells. So we're going to have to do a conical biopsy. I'm like, a what? And she said, you're going to have to go into the hospital and we'll
Right.
put you under and we're going to have to cut your cervix. And I was like, oh my God. You hear the word biopsy, you hear the word cancer, and that's when you start straightening up, right? You're like, whoa.
Right.
So I was like, okay, this can't be happening. But I was so disconnected from my body at the time. I'm like, I'm done having kids. Just take my parts out. Who cares? And I was like, what is wrong with you? Like your body is screaming at you, right?
Right.
So I went to every kind of healer I knew. I used my method on myself. And, I was told that I wasn't in touch with my divine feminine. Now, at the time, I didn't know what the hell that meant. I was like, what does it mean? Got to grow my hair long? Do I need to wear flowy dresses? Do I have to dance? What does it mean to be in touch with your divine feminine? Now I think we
Right.
understand the balance of masculine and feminine energy within ourselves,
Right.
but at the time I didn't know. And then I went to someone else, who said to me, look, you have devalued yourself as a woman for so long, the energy had to go somewhere. And I had another person, an energetic acupuncturist tell me, we've just got to shift this up and out of the body in a similar technique as what I do with soul intelligence. And someone else said to me, you don't worry, by the time you go in for that procedure, it's going to be gone. And so I started to embrace what does it mean to be a woman? And I started to read about really incredible female leaders. And, like people like Sekhmet, this is an Egyptian goddess with like lioness hair, probably identified. And, Isis and,
Right.
Joan of Arc and all these powerful women leaders, and I realized that women can be infinitely powerful and strong. I had always thought that they were weak. And so that's why I had pushed all of that down. And so the energy had to go somewhere. So it went to the seat of womanhood, which is the uterus. It is the cervix. And that's where we birth babies and businesses. Incidentally, it is also, for a man, the seat of manhood is the prostate. It's one of the reasons why so many men who retire get prostate cancer because they've lost their sense of purpose, their contribution in the world. So it's kind of fascinating when you start following the energy and what your body's telling you.
Right.
So I went in for this procedure. I did all the things, by the way. I meditated. I prayed. I saw my cells vibrating healthy. I embraced being a woman and that women can be infinitely powerful. And I learned the lesson, right? So I go in, I get the procedure done, and I will never forget the OBGYN's face because she just looked shocked. And she said to me, we must have cut it all out because it's gone. I'm like, yeah, we must have. Now, did we cut it all out? Was it all the energy work? Was it all the... Yes, is my answer. And who cares, right? Because we fixed it physically, mentally, emotionally, energetically, period. So, and I haven't had a recurrence of anything. So very grateful. I still have all my parts. So,
I
there's
love that. But see, there's the power of the mind, right? Like, I think my moment of like using that energy was my first year of sobriety because, right, I feel good. Haven't touched a drink or a drug. And, so I go to the doctor, I'm having some shoulder pain and I'm just getting my checkup and they do the blood work and say, well, your liver enzymes are elevated. You might we think you have Hep C because I was people know I was an IV drug user, right? At one point in my addiction. So I'm like, oh, that's, even though in your heart, like that could be a possibility because of my behaviors and the things I did.
Sure.
I still would I was like, oh, that sucks. You know what I mean? Like, oh no. Right. But I just remember praying and staying on the path and doing all this stuff and trying to get healthy and staying healthy, right? My first year. Yeah. And, I'm changing because my sponsor would say, Max, you got one thing to change. I go, cool. What's that? He goes, everything. I'm like, oh, great. Right.
Really? That was it?
Yeah. I go, that's it. Thanks a lot.
Man.
Right.
That's doable. Appreciate ya.
So I go to a specialist, right, upon referral from my doctor, and similar to yours, right? He goes, well, yeah, I think you have Hep C, but I want to run further tests to be sure, right? So we're going to take this blood and we're going to do this and come back. I go back and like you, the same thing. He goes, I don't know what happened, but you don't have it. Like you may be a carrier, but I don't even see you being a carrier. There's no signs of it anymore. And I'm like, and thank God, right? Because I test every year just for that reason. And I've been negative for this year, if I test negative, it'll be 22 years testing negative for all that stuff.
Awesome.
But a part of it is, I believe too, is that meeting people like you and knowing there's a different way to heal myself, right? Other than going and getting a pill, right? Because I was on, right, at the time, at one time in my sobriety, I went into a severe depression. Never experienced anything like that since or before. But, it was one of those where you barely make it to work. I was barely making it to meetings. And the relationship I was at the time, all they did was see the back of my head, go to the room and curl up on the bed, what I called my cave, right? And curl up in a fetal position and not literally told my sponsor, I don't want to live like this. I don't know what I'm going to do. And then he gave me some direction and I said, oh yeah, okay, I'll do that. So I went to the doctor, right? I got put on an antidepressant and worked for 10 years. But then there's moments it didn't work, right? It wasn't bad. I wasn't going back into a depression, but I was just like there, as my family would just say, you're like this, Max. You're there like a straight, like, what does that mean? Well, you're not happy, but you're not sad. You're there. And I'm like, okay. So 5 years later, I've been off it and I feel better now that I can feel the ups and downs, right? I don't go into severe depression, but I do have my moments like everybody else does, right? But my journey, the gratitude I have is, like I said, meeting people like yourself that heal, and teach people how to heal themselves and with your help and, just learning all these different things and, like doing breath work and all this stuff that I go, that's my go-to now, right? Is meditation, my prayer and all that stuff. And looking forward to, like today's podcast with Kristine, everybody, and going, I know I'm going to learn something different today. And it's so fascinating to me, right? Because there's proof. It's not just, like when I first heard about this stuff years ago, I'd like, I didn't want to, no, I don't believe this stuff, right? You know what I mean? I brush it off.
Right.
And then, my sponsor would say, but look how they're doing now. Like he'd say, do your research, look at their before and after, right? Because he's a big proponent of the 12 steps, which, for my recovery is, I still go to meetings, but he says, and even, the big book of AA says, look at where other people may be right, like doctors and religion and, spiritual, people. And because it's not a one size fits all. And if I can work with a client and help them find their path to recovery, then I've done my job. Not be like the old fashioned, like the hardcore old timers, as they call them. If you don't do it our way, you're going to die because you're not going to work the steps. And I'm like, wow, really? Okay. You guys are mean. You know what I mean?
Well, I think there's a lot to be said and for it. And what I do in my work is I try and take, people's, concerns away by talking about the science, right? Why does it work?
Right.
And it works because it's based in a science that was documented in the 1950s called bioenergetics. And it was documented by Dr. Alexander Lowen. And what bioenergetics says is kind of common sense to me. But if you're not doing well physically, then mentally, emotionally, you're not doing so well either, because you're all connected. So you talked about the depression. Okay, that was coming from the physical, right? The physical body. And then the mind gets depressed and you're stuck because you're firing the same patterns every day. You're going through the same motions every day. And so you feel stuck. You're not creating any new neural pathways. So when I talk to people, I talk about, look, it is neuroplasticity. We can change that. You can internally shift your body chemistry. Meditation has been shown. I mean, I'm a big proponent. One of my mentors is Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he talks a lot about the power of meditation, right? And how you can shift your internal condition for that new possibility, and that it will literally change your body chemistry. And he's got studies now on his website that have been validated by UC San Diego researchers and how it works. I mean, he's even taken people to something as simple as an hour comedy show, and having them tested before and after the comedy show because their energy has gone up into a state of joy for an extended period of time.
Right.
And it has upregulated their genes. And those were people with, like, I think it was chronic, they had prostate cancer, but it upregulated the genes to minimize what was going on with the prostate cancer. Just it's absolutely fascinating when you start studying, what's really going on in the body and how it's connected to your mental and emotional wellness. My method is, I'll just describe it really quickly. I basically use a book of charts and a pendulum. Okay. And which sounds a little wacko, right? Like, I couldn't walk into a boardroom with a book of charts and a pendulum. Obviously, people would think I had, I was lost my mind. But basically, I'm able to do this work over Zoom, and I'm able to get into your subconscious mind, because that is where everything is stored. Your emotions, your old trauma, your self-limiting beliefs. And it's what's running the show 95% of the time. Now, I'm really grateful for that, or we'd all stop breathing when we were sleeping, right? We need the subconscious mind to be doing its job. But that means you have to use 5% of your mind to try and shift what's in the 95% of the subconscious mind. And most of us don't know what's there. We don't know that, our abandonment wound from childhood is what's showing up in our relationships until someone brings it to our attention. Or, you think you've healed from that divorce, and then, I do a soul intelligence session like, oh my God, I'm still hanging on to that. I can't believe it. I thought I worked through all of it. And so I'm able to get really, really specific and figure out what those things are that the body hasn't let go of. You might think you've let go of stuff when it's still stuck in your emotional body or your physical body, and it's what's wreaking havoc. And so I work in the field of functional medicine, and I partner with functional medicine doctors. So once I get the energy up and out of the body that's been holding that chronic condition locked in place, then they're able to give the body what it needs in order to heal itself completely, which in the case of functional medicine tends to be a nutraceutical. So like supplements, vitamins, like healthy shakes, things like that, to give the body the nutrients it needs to fight off and rebuild that immune system in particular most of the time.
Right. And we want our body to work on its optimal and how do I want to put it? Electrical energy level, right? Because how many books are out there? And I love Dr. Joe Dispenza, right? I mean, listen to that guy's story. He talks about, he was told he was never going to walk again. And he said, "Nope, that's not going to happen." Right. They wanted to do all these surgeries and he's like, "Nope." I mean, talk about the power of the mind and him proving how powerful and what you've done in not only in your own life and with the people that you have helped, right? The mind is such a powerful thing. And I believe if we can connect the mind and the heart, right, it makes us such a better person, and we give off better energy, and we can live a better life. And I'm speaking of this because I know I need some healing done, right? I because as soon as you mentioned it, my brain's all, yep, she's talking about you, Max. Right? Like, how did she know? How did she know? But, and I'm just being open with you and the audience, right? Like, there's, I'm the stubborn male.
Well, the power of the mind and the heart being in coherence is incredible. Right? Because that's when you're in alignment. That's when you're in touch with your mission, your vision, your values, your purpose, and you feel like you can run through the fire, right? It's, we all know IQ, right? We're all stuck in our heads, the IQ. We got that one down. EQ, we learned about, how you say what you say is really important. But we got to get quiet to hear that soul intelligence, that inner knowing, right? That allows us to really be in alignment with who we are to serve our purpose in the world. And I believe you went through what you went through so that you can coach and heal and help others, right? I really believe that's what it's all about.
But I'm like you, and tell me if I'm wrong, but like, we still have to learn and get better every day so that we can continue this journey of helping others, right?
Oh,
Like,
heck yeah. I didn't say
you
my
know,
relationships were perfect.
I love it. But
Oh, yeah, I
I
get it.
know
Trust
why,
me.
and I'm with you. I know I love my wife, but I know it ain't perfect. And most of it is because of the stupid, excuse my language, shit that I do, right? Without like, and then always going, oh, I shouldn't have done, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, typical male, right? Open his mouth and put his foot in there and then go, oops, I should have done that.
Well, it can be something as simple as like you wake up with a kink in your neck, like one morning. So if you feel like which side of the neck, the left side of the body is female and the right side of the body is male. So you wake up with a kink in your neck on the left side. That could mean, oh, I'm being inflexible with my wife, or she's being a pain in my neck, literally. So, it's not you slept wrong. There's something
Right.
going on there. You got to dive in, it could be something as
Well,
simple as that.
absolutely. Right. And you said the left side is female?
Yeah.
Did you say?
Mm-hmm.
Is
Yeah.
that why my left arm is always waking me up going numb from the elbow down? Because I
Could be. Could be. There's
well,
something
we're
going
gonna
on there. We're going to
hopefully
dive in.
hopefully you and I can talk after the podcast because I got some questions for you. But
Absolutely.
this is, I knew just from our talk on, Matchmaker and coming on, I knew this was going to be such a wonderful and amazing conversation. You killed it, and I'm so honored and grateful that you're here,
Thank
right? Because
you.
I'm learning so much, right, about just, if there's anything that I could teach the audience, right, separate from Kristine, is just like when Kristine is talking, keep an open mind, because there's so many things out there that can help us become better people. And these are I think one of the methods, right, that could help us grow as human beings. Even if, are we going to be perfect? As far as I know, there's one perfect being, and that's the man upstairs. And I've learned that all I have to do is become 1% better every day. And then I'm doing my job, right? But there was
Outstanding.
something that I learned from a previous guest, and all about the subconscious, right? He goes, 95% of our subconscious rules are 5% of our conscious,
That's
right?
right.
And he goes, what I learned from Napoleon Hill, right? And
Mm-hmm.
found out the secret, even though they don't put it in, Think and Grow
You can
Rich.
grow
He goes,
rich. Uh-huh.
I figured out the secret to help you start stepping, so you can use that 95%, of your subconscious and move it into your conscious brain. He goes, yeah, it takes time, but you can do it. And he talks about how he was stuck at a certain pay level till he was 50 years old, right? Then he started doing this practice, and all his dreams started coming true, right? Because he did certain things every day to open up that 95% of his conscious brain to let, the subconscious.
Well, I have a technique as well, and it's on
Oh, I
my
love it.
website. It's a free download. It is called the Sacred Soul Script, and it's basically reprogramming your subconscious mind with your conscious mind. But it does take practice, and you got to do
Right.
it every day. And it could, it could also be, you visualizing it, writing it, and typically you write as if it's already happened with lots of feeling, because your subconscious responds to feeling and it knows no time. And I remember I was on a plane flying out to LA actually to record the Audible version of my book. My book is Healing Through Soul Intelligence. It's available on Amazon. But I was on my way out to a recording studio and I went, oh my gosh, everything on my Sacred Soul Script has already come true. I have a book tour in New York City. I'm going to be on a Times Square billboard. I'm in a movie. I'm like about to record my book. What? Right? Everything that I had in there had already materialized. I'm like, I'm living my higher self. I'm living my Sacred Soul Script. So there is a way for you to be able to do that and to realize
love
those
it.
things. Yeah. And so if anybody's interested, you can go to my website, soulintelligencemethod.com, and that's SOUL, of course, but soulintelligencemethod.com. And you can check out my free resources that I have there. My book is also available there. You can also sign up for programs. I actually have a free event the first Wednesday of every month. It's at 6 Eastern. That people can join if they want to have a soul intelligence experience. Although I just made it a membership program, but it's a very nominal cost for somebody to get involved. So it'd be really nice to stay connected and What I'm really called to do is to teach other people this method. I want more people to have this at their disposal. I want to train the trainers. I want to see this in wellness centers across the country.
You know what? I think this stuff would be good in treatment centers across the country.
Absolutely.
Right? You know what I mean? Like incorporating stuff like this instead of going to a doctor every week and going, here's more medication that this will help you. Like it's driving me crazy, Kristine, but that's another conversation. And I'm so sorry. I was going to bring up your book, but we were having so much fun.
Oh,
But
it's okay.
please talk about your book a little bit, and then we can always bring you back for part 2. But let's let the audience know about your book. One, real quick, how it came about, and then what can they expect in your book?
Absolutely. Well, it's called Healing Through Soul Intelligence. So this is it, and this is me on the cover, actually. And it describes the method. It talks about, a lot of the different stories, physicians and healthcare providers who I've actually helped them personally before helping their patients and their staff. The foreword to my book was written by a triple board certified MD who's also on Tony Robbins' medical team. And so she talks about how the method changed her life and her, family's life and her team, her staff and her wellness center. I've got, like I said, so many testimonials and case studies and stories in there to talk about as you would call it, the before and after. But the method is very painless. And it's all you got to do is show up to a Zoom. That's it. Talk about compliance, right? That's all you got to do. And then I'm able to work with someone to help them shift things up and out of the body. And it's a very painless way to release things that are holding you back, like all those things we mentioned earlier, right? And
Right.
we're complex beings. So this stuff comes out in layers. Basically the way I describe it is you go to a chiropractor for a biomechanical adjustment, you come to me for a bioenergetic one. And so essentially what that does is to help you recalibrate. And then once you, feel better, you're going to find that the people in your life feel better. Because as we talked about, everybody has an energy field around them and people pick up on it and feel that whether you realize it or not. And so you're going to have an impact on others. I remember I did this for a doctor. And I had helped her, doing a one-on-one session. And the next day she was like, I don't know what you did, but my husband and I had like the best conversation. He was so loving and caring. How did you affect him? And I went, it was you, right? He is responding differently to you because you feel different. You responded different. You weren't reacting. And so she was blown away. And that was an MD, like, come on. So it's pretty cool when you actually get to see this stuff in action.
Well, one, I'm honored you're here, and two, I'm really excited and to hear, right? I love when stuff like this works on those people that are so science, like, oh, that stuff don't work because it does, But like you said, a lot of it is backed up by science, even though it's been
based in science.
Right,
it's quantum physics. It's bioenergetics. It's, people are finally starting to recognize, how all of it works.
Right. And, like I said, we'll talk after this because I have a feeling we'll work together because, like, I'm on a big mission to prove my doctor at the VA wrong, like that I can, right? I have better methods than you always handy. Like, I find, and here's my telling on myself. I didn't want to hear him anymore say, you need to take this. So I took some gabapentin, right? Like, go ahead, prescribe it. But it's probably still in my cupboard, probably expired, right?
Yeah.
But, I let him cross a boundary and, we could sit here probably for another hour or so and talk about.
Well, we can talk about natural alternatives, to try and help you with what the pharmaceutical piece of it is, right? Because we want to treat the underlying root cause. So every dis-ease, every dysfunction has an underlying emotional root cause around it. There's not one.
Absolutely. Well, that's why.
And you got to heal completely, not just one part, right?
Right. And that's why, this is my little, I don't know, you want to call it a little bitch or whatever you want to call it. But that's why I get mad at people that put down the 12 steps, right? Because we talk about getting to the root cause of your drinking, right? And that the 12 steps work. And a lot of times when people go, they didn't work for me. I go, well, what step did you get to? And they go, I never did them. I said, how did you know if they worked or not? Right. It's like me going to Kristine and going, oh, your method doesn't work. Well, I don't remember you scheduling a session with me or,
Yeah.
going through this. Right. But that's why I said, like, everybody out there in the audience, have an open mind. Kristine has just given us so much great information. I hope the audience does reach out to you. I know, I want to speak to you after this.
Absolutely. Thank
But
you.
it's been such a wonderful time. And now I'm going to ask you the questions that I teasingly talked to you about.
Okay.
I forget, but there is 3 that I always remember.
All right.
We're going to start with fearless, right? Going through what you've been through in your life and on this journey. What does fearless mean to you today, Kristine? And how does that show up in your life on a daily basis?
Well, I think when you trust yourself, you're able to eliminate fear. Right. And fear is really one of those low vibrating emotions that really doesn't have a place in our life. It's down there with shame and guilt and perfectionism. They all vibrate lower than fear. And I also know I've lived through some pretty horrific stuff in my life, so not a lot scares me anymore. And I trust myself, and I'm very much grounded in my spiritual life as well as my regular everyday work life, and I bring the divine into everything that I do. And so I feel like my work is sacred, and I feel very comfortable not being afraid of much.
I love it.
Although you won't catch me jumping out of a perfectly good airplane, okay? That's just stupid. I'm not doing it.
That's funny you said that. I've done it twice.
I bet you have. That's why I threw it out there.
Yeah, I did it at 13,000 feet and my second time at 18,000 feet.
Yeah,
and let me tell you,
no reason for that.
Yeah, if I could do it again, I would. But my wife said over my dead body, and I probably would. She does not like that. She's so afraid just me telling her 18,000 feet, I could see the look in her eye like, what? You went out who would do that in their right mind? And you were sober when you did that? I go, absolutely.
Yeah, like, what 100%. The heck, man?
But, yeah, I love it. Thank you so much for that. And so we're going to go into the next one. And you see, I put a Y in happiness, and I did that on purpose. So knowing I put a Y in happiness, what does happiness mean to you? And how does that show up in your life on a daily basis?
You know what? I do my best to find joy every day. When I do my daily meditation, it's not only, what could I have done different or better, but it's also about experiencing that and doing work that has meaning in the world. That's truly what makes me happy. When you know that you've actually helped someone and you can visibly see, them change on a Zoom, from being on oxygen and being in a recliner and labored breathing to the end, pulling the oxygen out and having color back in their face. It's incredible. And there's no greater gift to me. And so doing the work I do in the world makes me happy.
Yeah, you probably can't. You cannot put a price on that if you got to
No.
I love it. Well, like I said, this has been a great time. Kristine, I've had so much fun and learned so much from you. But I have to ask if they missed it, if the audience wants to get a hold of you, they want to purchase your book or schedule, look further into working with you to get help from you. How do they get a hold of you?
They can go to soulintelligencemethod.com. And you can find everything about me there. You can sign up for emails to just find out about all my programs and what I'm offering. You can also go to Amazon to get my book. It's available on Kindle and Audible and Barnes & Noble. It's an LA Tribune bestseller. And it's also, actually, it was just voted 2025 Book of the Year by Best Holistic Life magazine. And I'm in contention 26 as well. So pretty exciting.
I love it. I love being on podcasts with fellow authors.
You got one too? I love it.
Well, I have 2. I've released my second book at the end of the month. It came out on the 28th.
Wow, congrats. That's on my list of to-dos for 26. So awesome.
See, I mean, that's what we push each other, right? To be better every day. I love doing that with people. I mean, yeah, there's a joy in doing it myself, but when when I'm with a guest and they're going, yeah, I'm going to do that. Like it excites me to see the light in your eyes. You know what I mean? Because you help me go, I got to keep getting better here. Don't get lazy, Max, because, I work from home and it gets really easy to get comfortable being comfortable, if you know what I mean. Like,
I get it.
But like I said, this has been a wonderful time, Kristine. I've learned so much. I'm hoping the audience did. I hope they go out and get your book. I know I will be getting your book, but you're not quite off the hook just yet. So I get to ask you my favorite question that I ask of all my guests, and it goes like this. Kristine, what is the one piece of advice that you could give my audience to help them grow as human beings and become better people?
Well, I'm going to use my what I'm quoted for the most, which is self-care isn't selfish, it's sacred. And so when you choose to take care of yourself or go on your own healing journey, I want people to remember that because we're all connected, okay, we're all part of this quantum field. When you choose to heal yourself, not only are you going to impact the people that around you, like I've just described, but there's something called the butterfly effect in quantum physics. And what that says is if a butterfly dramatically changes its trajectory, flight pattern on one side of the world, it can literally cause a tsunami on the other side of the world.
Wow.
And the reason that is because we're all connected. So I want you to understand when you go on your own self-healing journey, you're helping to raise the consciousness of the planet just by doing you. So you do you, boo.
You heard it, everybody. That's what I've been saying all along. Maybe she said it better than me. You do you, boo. Like, that's awesome, right? Because in the long run, that's if we can work on being better people, right? Even like I said, at 1% better than the day before, than the day before, like over a year's time, right? You could actually go, wow, I started in January, now it's December. I'm 365% better than I was last year. Like, what a boost.
Yeah.
But, for me, I have the privilege of having awesome guests like Kristine, right? So her and I will stay connected. You heard that, everybody. So if she reaches out and says, yeah, he's full of what, because he didn't stay connected, you guys can all get me. But this has been a great time. Again, thank you so much for being here, Kristine. I've had a wonderful time, and it definitely was an honor for me to have you here. So thank you so much.
Likewise, Max. I had a great time too. Thanks for having me.
You're awesome. You heard her, everybody. If Kristine made you think, if Kristine taught you something, if Kristine made you smile, and my famous, if Kristine made you go, I like that, please go to iTunes and leave a 5-star review, and then come join us on my new YouTube channel, where you can actually see Kristine and I having this awesome conversation. So again, good morning, good evening, or good afternoon or good evening, whatever order it goes in wherever you are in the world. This is Max from the Fearless Happiness Podcast. Until next time.
Are you tired of being weighed down by life's traumas and struggles? Join the Fearless Happiness lifestyle and let us guide you toward a brighter future. Explore our past podcast episodes and get a copy of the Fearless Happiness book to ignite your inner strength. If you or someone you love is battling addiction or facing challenges related to unresolved trauma, know that we are here for you. Visit maxnijst.org, maxnijst.org, and take the first steps toward finding your fearless happiness. Thank you for listening. This has been a production of Fearless Happiness.